嗨，谢谢你收看好总监瞎谈，我是 David， 在我旁边呢有一位特别的来宾，然后这位就是 Peter Wills 是 齐侯门那个酒厂齐侯门酒厂呢，不只是他们全球的这个品牌大使之外呢，他也是行销主管，然后另外呢，他也是齐侯门家族最小的一个儿子啊。Peter, thank you for coming to Tainan.
Right, thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this with us. We're so glad to have you because we are fans of齐侯门. So it's so nice to have you and to talk about some of what's been happening at齐侯门Distillery. First of all, congratulations. It's been amazing. I was just catching up on, because before I heard about the visitor center, I saw the 3D tour of and it's amazing. I mean, you guys have done such an amazing job, and Rex told me on the way in that you guys are still expanding your capacity.
Yeah, it's something that if you asked my dad at the start, of building齐侯門, would we ever increase production, he would have probably laughed and said,
really?
If we can sell everything that we make,
we'll be happy.
He'll be delighted. At that point, we only made maybe 100,000 litres, just over.
Right.
Whereas, today we have the capacity for over 600,000 litres.
Wow, 600,000
So,
litres. Wow.
And even then, we still haven't got many whiskies that are always available. Lots of it is limited just purely on the stock. So expanding isn't something that was ever on the agenda, but great to see.
And the expanding isn't to build up inventory for the future; it's to meet current demand, which is awesome.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, if we thought about it, and it was tempting to just produce a small amount, and then you can always just sell it for higher prices or allocate it, and you can go sit on a beach somewhere and relax. But I think
whiskey fans are happy to hear that.
Yeah. So we thought, we have ambitions obviously to grow in the industry, and we thought if we're ever going to really push齐侯門on, then we need to be making a bit more. So that's the plan.
I think what's amazing about the齐侯門story up to this point is that not only have you grown so amazingly that you guys did as an independent, family-owned and run business. I think that's just amazing. Can you share with me, in your own opinion, what is the reason for the success of齐侯門?
It's probably hard to put a finger on it. I think when we first started, one of the big things was we were the only independent distillery on Islay for a while. We're the first new one for 124 years. So, and the industry was really dominated, and it still is to some degree, but a little less now by the big companies.
Right.
So I think people really appreciated a family-run company. They could meet the owners as opposed to lots of distilleries where you might meet a brand ambassador or a salesperson who's been to the distillery once or twice, and they're just telling a story what you could read on Google. Whereas I think from us, we try to tell a story of what actually goes on at齐侯門, and we were there from the start when we were painting the walls and scrubbing the stills, and we can tell those stories, and hopefully with a bit more passion and a bit more behind the scenes as opposed to just the sort of headline marketing.
Going through a brand book.
So I think people have really found maybe a connection with that, and they can connect to the distillery a bit more. Which has been nice. But it's hard to put your finger on exactly. Obviously, we hope the taste of the whiskey is one of the main reasons, and we do focus on the quality. But I think we're just happy that a few people like to drink it around the world.
Your dad was, within wine and then independent bottling, and then before starting齐侯門. So can you share with us a little bit, so when he started, you were there in the beginning, you and your brothers.
Yeah.
So what was going through your head? Were you excited? Share about that, that startup experience a little bit.
My brothers probably have a bit more of an input, because I was only about 15 at the time.
Right.
My older brothers are 2 years older and 4 years older, so they had a bit more idea of what was going on. Me, it was exciting. We were moving to Islay, we were building this distillery. I was just happy to help, as you said, painting the walls and helped out in production, shoveling some barley. I was just happy to get some pocket money, but it was really exciting, but actually it was very stressful. So you could feel the stress from my dad and my mum when they were starting the distillery, because the hardest thing is the financial side by a long way. You can choose what style of whiskey, you can choose a bottle and a label and a way you're going to build it, but we ran out of money more times than I can count, and we sold the house and moved to Islay, and that side of things I think was really stressful for my parents over the first, particularly 3 to 5 years, where at many stages it looked like齐侯門would just go bust and not be able to produce whiskey. So I think the overriding memory is more stress than anything, and then after that became the real excitement. Once we could release whiskey, the feedback from the consumers was positive. That's when it became really exciting. You could then go to trade shows and get people to taste it and tell the story. That's when it really yeah, really got going.
Did your dad have a talk with you after, like, when you're old enough to join the company officially about joining, or was it like just, an unspoken thing? You were just joining the family business?
I mean, I don't know if you met my father or any of us really, but we're quite relaxed people, so there's never any pressure on you must join and must do this. He sent us off to university and we could study whatever we wanted, and both my brothers actually did other jobs elsewhere before joining Kilchoman. It just so happened that I finished university when Kilchoman just started selling whiskey, so I was the first one to join.
Wow.
And he just said, well, we need to sell some whiskey in London, so off you go look for another job if you want one, but while you're looking, do some work for Kilchoman. So I started selling to bars and restaurants and shops in Kilchoman, just not really knowing what I was doing, aged 21, but never stopped from there, just loved it and been there ever since.
So you were the first of your brothers to join the company?
Yeah, so 2 older brothers, and then very quickly after that, obviously once we started selling whiskey and we needed more people on board, James came and George came, and now, the whole family's there.
That's awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about the whiskey, but before we go into that, I want to ask you, what is it like, because you said, I can tell from the videos that you guys are like, at least on camera, very chill, fun, and fun-loving, relaxed people. But what is it like to work with your brothers and your father, in a business?
It's
What's
funny, this question comes up a lot because I think a lot of families think never spend that much time together.
It's a very interesting dynamic,
But I think the good thing is maybe with whiskey where, it's a global product, so we're often in different places. So my mum and dad are based on Islay at the distillery. My dad does the blending and the battings and all the production sort of side of things. So they're based there. My eldest brother George is based in England down south, so he runs the UK side of things. And then me and James, the middle brother, are based in Edinburgh, but we do different markets around the world. So we're not always in the same office, so maybe it helps with family
space.
In
between.
We're not too on top of each other. So the fact that we're maybe more relaxed helps, but I think also, spending now a week in Taiwan and away from your family is probably a good thing. So we get on a little bit better.
So, what, like you mentioned, because I want to talk about, in your own opinion, what sets, Kilchoman apart aside from other, Islay distilleries? I remember reading that when, you guys started Kilchoman, the point was to start a farm distillery. Right?
Yeah. So that was the ethos, and with my dad obviously starting in the industry, which already there were 7 distilleries on Islay, 100 distilleries around Scotland. So you had to try and do something different. And that was farm distilling, and at that time, there's new distilleries now that have started on a smaller scale, but at that time, building a small distillery on a farm and producing the barley no one did it. So that was his idea, and the idea on the farm was to try and grow initially all the barley, and thought that we needed and everything like that. But as he did the maths, it didn't quite work out. The farm wasn't quite big enough, but it was still a big part of what we do. So we grow about 250 tonnes on the farm. We then have a floor malting, traditional floor maltings. We peat it, mature it, bottle it, distill it all on site. So the 100% Islay style of whiskey we do, used to be the only whiskey in the whole of Scotland that was produced that way, from barley field all the way to bottle. As I said, now there's a few newer distilleries who on a smaller scale do something similar, but that was
Kilchoman was the first one to bring that style of whiskey from farm to bottle in the modern age.
Exactly, and it used to be, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, it used to be sort of the norm. It was sort of how whiskey started. Crofters, growing barley, doing small production. So that was the idea. And again, I think people maybe didn't realise it when you see a whiskey on the shelf. I think people for so many years just assumed, oh, that's how it's done, or they must grow the barley somewhere in Scotland, or they must do this, they must do that. But it was when we started telling everyone how, we do the maltings, we do this, they realised that only a handful of distilleries even do the maltings. Not all distilleries mature on site, most distilleries don't bottle anywhere near the distillery. So I think it was a change of people's opinions on what happens in the whiskey industry. So that's what really stands us out. If you come visit us, which I don't know if you have.
I have not but I really would love to.
So you can drive up the drive and see the barley growing in the fields, and then all the production.
But I've done the tours with you guys virtually when you guys did it from the farm to the distillery.
So you'll just have to come visit us. So that's what makes us a bit special. Obviously, we couldn't do all of it ourselves. So we have the 100% Islay style and then the Portela malting style, where we get the barley from Islay. And we're going to try and increase the 100% Islay style. So we're growing more barley if we can, draining fields, and we're increasing the size of the malt floor to do 6 tonnes instead of 4 every week. So we're trying to get that back because as we've increased production over the years, it obviously has to come from the Port Ellen maltings.
Yeah.
We couldn't just magically grow more ourselves, so we're trying to make sure that always remains a big part of Kilchoman and doesn't just become a
marketing.
Side. Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. So thank you for bringing this, the new make.
No problem. A bit of extra weight on the way over.
Yeah. And the Kilchoman bottle isn't light. It's a very substantial thing. Can you share a little bit about the new make, and then would you mind if we try some new make together?
So this is from the 100% Isla styles. This is with our own barley, peated ourselves, and malted on the floor malting. So it's at 20 ppm instead of the 50 ppm that you'll see in the Mackie Bay.
Right.
It's at 63.5%. So that's the ABV that we fill into our casks.
Right.
So all these whiskies here would have started being filled into cask at that ABV. And I think it's interesting to try the spirit because we don't chill filter, it's all natural colour. So all the colours here is only come from the wood. It all started at this.
Right.
So it's interesting to sort of see and taste what the differences are. And for instance, our two main whiskies, the Mackie Bay and Saneg, this is a similar spirit, slightly higher peating level because they're from the Port Ellen maltings, but the two different barley varieties we ferment for the same time, we distill in the same way, so it's a similar. And for me, it's really nice. The amount of fresh fruit you can hear is really big. A little bit of sweetness.
Sweet, very sweet.
It's kind of like a malty sort of barley sugars. That sort of thing.
It smells very fruity, very fresh.
And not, it is powerful, of course. 63.5% is pretty strong.
It doesn't smell like it's 63%.
It's not too sharp.
It's not very, you don't get really good.
Because sometimes with the high ABV,
you feel the hit of alcohol.
Just kind of sort of flinching, trying to find the flavours. But actually,
and we just opened this bottle too.
You can always put your nose right in there. And And the smoke is, I think, across the Kilchomans, but particularly on the spirit, sometimes the smoke is very light. The biggest feature is like all that fresh fruit and that little bit of sweetness. It's typical on the nose. On the palate, a little bit more smoke, but actually, interestingly enough, as it goes into the cask and as it starts to age, that peat tends to come through a bit more then, rather than in the spirit. So it's interesting to try the two different.
Thank you, John, for coming to taste this with us.
So obviously, reasonably powerful, but it's that real light.
Actually, it's very smooth. It's very rounded.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, this is honestly okay to sell as a product.
We've been asked before if we can. But,
it's actually quite nice.
We need it to make into whiskey. So.
Right. They don't have enough of it. Yeah, so how has Taiwan been like for Kilchoman as you guys have been?
Obviously, it's a very important market for single malt. You guys love to drink a lot of whiskey here, which is good news. And use traditionally lots of single malt whiskey. So most markets in the world are mostly blends with a small percent of single malt at the premium end. In Taiwan, a few things. I think probably the prices and the taxes are a bit lower here, but it's almost 50-50. So a huge amount of single malt is drunk. So it's always been important for us. I know sort of smoky peated Isla whiskey is a bit more of a niche here.
It's becoming more and more in favor.
So here it's growing. So it's something we hope to continue building. The one difference, I guess, the big companies again have distribution globally, so they're able to price compete a bit more because it's such an important market. Lots of the bigger brands are able to lower their prices to compete. Whereas for us, that's not really what we do. So we tend to be a bit more of an expensive option here. So I think that's held us back a little bit, but we're starting to see the growth now, and hopefully it's a case of the more people that drink Kilchoman and hear the story can then continue to drink and enjoy it after that. So we're noticing that now. It's starting to build and grow now. In
your travel to different markets around the world, in your own personal opinion, what do you think is the reason that Taiwanese people like single malt so much?
It's difficult to know. I mean, it's something that I've been coming here I haven't been here for 4 years because of COVID, but I've been coming here for sort of 7 or 8 years now. And there is just this unbelievable passion, interest in the product and the whiskey. So you go to other places in the world and they may have really fancy shops and big and grand presentations and this and that. Whereas here, it seems it's all about the whiskey and the taste. So the shops aren't huge with all special glitz and glamour. They're just basic. Here's the bottle. Here's what it tastes like, and you enjoy the whiskey for what it is, not the glitz and the marketing. So I think that's maybe why it just seems to be so popular is it's all about the liquid and not the stories and the marketing.
What's your favorite expression of Kilchoman?
So mine, I tend to lean towards ex-bourbon cask style. My dad, if you ever heard him, or know him, he really believes the bourbon cask is going to be where Kilchoman, particularly older Kilchomans, are really at their best. Really shine through, where the bourbon character is a slightly lighter influence on the spirit. So both the spirit and the of Kilchoman and the cask are evident. Whereas with sherry cask and wine cask, sometimes they're quite powerful and dampen the Kilchoman character. So he's a fan of the bourbon. I have to agree. So I prefer probably something like the Maccabee, which is more bourbon cask influence. It's that lighter, fresher feel to it. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, Saneg, if you ask my brother, my oldest brother George, he tends to lean a bit towards the Saneg and the more sherry cask influence. Each to their own, but for me, this is a perfect everyday drinking whiskey.
Yeah, I'm with you on Maccabee. I think I tend to prefer the Kilchoman. I think it brings out the distillery character a lot more. But sherry is nice, but it's sherry.
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly. I think there's more similarities with different, so sherry cask matured whiskies, maybe harder to tell apart. Whereas with, as you said, with Maccabee and bourbon cask influence, distillery shines through a bit more.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, the new make, I mean, it tasted better than I thought it would. I mean, I'm still enjoying it.
You're going to be hiding that bottle later.
Yeah. It's gonna disappear. I'll pour in here for you a little bit.
Thank you very much.
We can taste a little bit of the Maccabee together.
Cheers. Yeah. So this, you start to obviously notice the more cask influence coming across, because as I said, the spirit-wise, although that's with 20 ppm, it's a similar sort of character for the 50 ppm spirit that would have gone into cask for Maccabee.
Right.
So you're getting.
But it's really nice to come from the new make to this. You still taste the character, and on top of the cask.
Exactly. I think it really highlights where it's come from and noticing the different tasting notes in there. So the first thing is obviously the smoke and the fresh fruit is evident there. That citrus, sort of orange fruit comes through a lot. A little bit more peat on this one on the nose, but I think always with Kilchoman, it's not a big peat monster. It's not loads of smoke. It's not that earthy peat smoke that some islands. It's more of a balance, sort of lighter, sort of salty smoke.
When Kilchoman started, there was a lot of non-age expressions because it's a new distillery. It's younger, but I've noticed that as the distillery get older, it still has not really gone. And of course it's a trend now to go more. But what do you think is the influence of age on the Kilchoman spirit? Because age is not something that you really feel is a character that Kilchoman, in this release.
It's something that we're obviously conscious of. Age is, we never denied age is important to whiskey. Certainly, it is. The main thing that changes the character is the cask. But I think what we tried to do from the start, and my dad again was one of the first maybe to try it and do it as a distillery as a whole, was it's more about other concepts. So for instance, whether you make a really light, clean spirit, it's a bit quicker to mature. Whether you use first fill and second fill barrels, a lot of distilleries will maybe use their casks 3 or 4 or 5 times. So it takes a bit longer to mature, and there's no right or wrong way with whiskey, which I think is great. We just do it in a different way. Whereas my dad wanted to aim for a young, fresh, full of character whiskey. So try to tailor the production to do that. So Kilchoman is never going to have a whole load of 21, 25 year old whiskey.
That's not what it's
not designed to do. So it's just Kilchoman was designed in a different way. So it's more about what casks you put together, the freshness of them, the spirit that we produce. There's ages on the limited one, so for the things like this one, which I think is a single cask, we put the distillation date and the bottling date on there. For things like the Loch Gorm, we put on the label what year the cask came from. Not necessarily age statements, but all the limited releases tell you what age they are. The difference with Maccabee and Saneg is we don't do that because they change batch to batch so often. We don't tend to put the age statement on them. But when it started, so when Maccabee first was released, so this whiskey here, when it was 2012, it was mostly 3-year-old whiskey.
At the time, that's all you.
And then now, as we've developed, it's now got 8-year-old casks in the attic. So it's every year, the Maccabee and the Saneg, the age slightly increases and changes, although always remaining the same proportion of sherry and bourbon casks. The age and sometimes more fresh casks, sometimes more refill. So you'll notice subtle changes over the years with
so it actually, even though it has like a set character. It's still changing and evolving.
Exactly.
In time.
And we print laser print on the back of these bottles the date and batch number.
Okay.
So this was bottled in the 19th of March 2021.
Yeah.
And then if you're trying one that was maybe bottled in the 19th of March 2023, you'll notice a subtle difference. We try and keep it quite close, but there's a subtle difference each time. So I think we embrace that. Whiskey's a batch product. It's meant to be a little bit different every time, so we try and embrace that. But we do some limited age statements to sort of get back to your question. I sort of went off on a ramble there.
Yeah.
But
it's loving it. Yeah.
But we'll do later on this year. We're going to do a 16-year-old release for the first time.
Okay. Wow.
A limited batch, but we'll put an age statement on that.
Okay.
So we will do some age statements.
Okay.
Just more limited. We want people to really appreciate Kilchoman for what it is, not necessarily the age.
Yeah. It isn't everything, and I think.
Yeah.
And with peated whiskeys, you lose you lose that character.
So if you're a big fan of a big peated whiskey,
don't go for a higher.
You're not going to want it 30 years of age. So,
So
I think more people now, the education in whiskey is so good.
It's changing now. Yeah.
Exactly. People now understand age is important, but it's just one factor.
Yeah.
Age is one thing, and then the ABV is one, the cask type, the blending, the fermentation time, the distillation cut points, all these things make the whiskey, not just the age.
Not just the age.
20 years ago, everyone would have gone, age is the
it's the differentiator.
Yeah.
So let's taste the Fennec, the sherry expression.
Yeah.
I think as I'm pouring, so what is, aside from expanding capacity, what are some of the in the 16-year-old, any other exciting projects that you guys are working on?
There's a few, I guess. We tend to experiment either side of the distillation. So we've kept the actual making of the whiskey in the middle section fairly traditional. So we take it to a bit of extreme. So the fermentation, we're just using regular distiller's yeast, doing nothing wild or wacky, but we just do it for a very long time, average 85 hours. Same with distillation. We don't do anything wacky or different. We do it as it's been done for hundreds of years, but we just use particularly small stills, very tall, extra copper contact, so it's clean and pure. So there's just subtle differences there, whereas the big experiment we do probably is either end. So cask type, we've used a lot of different cask types over the years. We're still using different ones. There's going to be a champagne release soon. We've done tequila and mezcal casks matured. We've done big red wine vats that we've matured whiskey in. So lots of different things that end. And then at the start, obviously we have the farm, which gives us the ability to grow different types of barley. So we're always growing, every year we grow different experimental types of barley. We distill them separately to see if what different character comes through from the different barley types. So we're always looking at sort of either end really. And I guess in terms of new things at Kilchoman, we're Portel and malting, so owned by Diageo. So they've cut us off now from being able to buy malting from them.
Okay.
So we would then have to go to the mainland to get commercial maltings, but then it wouldn't be Islay peat. Yeah. Whereas we want it to be Islay local peat. So fortunately and unfortunately, we're going to have to build our own own commercial maltings.
Wow, really? Wow.
Which costs a bit of money, so we're going to have to owe the bank a little bit more money. But we're going to do that on site. So we'll still do our own floor maltings with all our own barley on the traditional floor maltings. But then when we buy the barley in, we'll then put it through the commercial maltings that we'll build on site. So good news is we'll have then full control over all our aspects. So we'll be able to buy the barley in, we'll use local Islay peat still, so it's have that same Islay character, because I think that's always been important to my dad, is as much Islay characteristics need to come through on the whiskey as possible. So it'll be good once it's up, but just a bit more money that we didn't want to spend is going to have to be done.
I mean, I have to ask you, Peter, you guys are the bank, right? You guys own the bank. I mean, as an independent distillery family owned, to have a farm, distilling, now also milling, and also to have all of that.
Yeah, so we need the time we need to keep drinking so we can pay back the bank when
it's
they
incredible.
need it.
So to invest this much effort and just to go all in on making it, what's the plan for your family, for the distillery? Like, is it are you?
Yeah, I think it's long term, and my dad's always had that thought. He started Kilchoman when he was, I guess, relatively old in the whiskey industry. He knew he wasn't gonna see Kilchoman get to the end stage and to be, I think it's happened a lot quicker than he actually thought it would. but he's almost 70 now, and he wants to continue building Kilhoman, not for himself necessarily, but for me, George, James, and he's what he's most proud of in Kilhoman out of anything is having us in the business. And I think in his mind and in our minds, hopefully in 50 years time, we're old and retired, and our children are working in Kilhoman and taking it to the next level. So everything we do isn't for 5 years time or 10 years time, it's for 50 years time, 100 years time, and hopefully it's still going long after that. But long term is in our sights, but we've got to make sure we get it right in the short term first.
I want to end the interview on that note, and thank you for not only being a great example, creating great single malts, but also being a great example for entrepreneurship and of what a successful family business is.
Like. Well, my dad took most of the risk. I can't take much credit for it.
No, but
no, he's always been that entrepreneur, and I think it's great. Entrepreneurs, I think, are what every country needs, and every society and every individual probably aspires to have their own company. So we're grateful he took the risk. So was it 18 years ago now? So we hope to be around for a long time yet.
Thank you for joining us, Peter, today.
No problem.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, sir.